Hi, I'm Bianca Solorzano, and welcome to Eye to Eye. Katie Couric is on assignment. We know that in a presidential year, the Iowa caucuses record the first votes that count. But what exactly is behind this complicated voting process? Jeff Greenfield sat down with one political analyst to help clear up the confusion.
What is it you think that an outsider who turns on his or her TV set and sees all this yelling and screaming about the Iowa caucuses, what's the biggest misconception, you think, or the biggest lack of understanding about this process?
People think the caucuses amount to an election, and one which in fact chooses delegates to the national convention that nominates the presidential candidates. That's simply incorrect. The best way to understand the caucuses is that they provide a way for candidates to reveal unexpected strengths and unexpected weaknesses in their campaigns, their messages, themselves. What we get out of this is simply an expression of the rough preferences of party members on each side on a particular day in the dead of winter as to who they would prefer to see as their nominee.
To jump ahead a bit, though, given the way the caucuses are covered and given the way the caucuses are treated by the candidates themselves, isn't it fair to say that the process, that the political universe, in effect, has turned these caucuses into a presidential preference contest?
Absolutely. The presidential preference really began as just something piggybacking on an ordinary set of party functions, and it's been blown way out of proportion, and the caucuses thus have become a major media event with results interpreted as being much more significant than they actually are. The caucuses were never instituted for presidential purposes. They serve party businesses. They've been around for 150 years. It's only since 1972 that the presidential dimension became part of this, and the reason they became a big deal is simply because of Jimmy Carter, that he came out of nowhere to win the caucuses, win the nomination, and win the presidency.
How similar are the Republican and Democratic caucuses?
In terms of party functions, the two caucuses are very similar. They both discuss platform issues with an aim toward the state party platform at the state convention, and they both elect delegates from these precincts to the next level, the county conventions. So in that sense, their party functions are exactly the same. The way they go about determining presidential preference is what is so remarkably different. The Republican process, of course, is simply a matter of a straw vote. It's recommended that be a secret ballot. Doesn't have to be, but it usually is. And these votes are tallied up and called into the party's central headquarters, and that's what we'll get caucus night, the sense of all the Republican participants, what percent favored which candidate. The Democrats do this very differently in a much more complicated way. As people are beginning to know, the Democrats work with what are called preference groups. And in this system, they align themselves physically with their bodies. They move around a room. The caucus chair will say, well, Senator Clinton supporters go over here, Senator Obama's over there, and so forth, including all people who are undecided go over someplace else. And every preference group, if the caucus is big enough, has to have a minimum threshold of 15% caucus attendees. And if you don't, then you have to dissolve and either go to undecided or reaffiliate yourself with one of the viable caucus groups.